Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. I'm Scott Davis with Michael Stubblefield, and we have yet to come up with a name for this podcast. And so we're waiting on your input. So dive in now, go to our YouTube channel, and just make a comment down below what you think the name of this podcast should be. So just share with us some of the ideas.
Well, they're all around bald some way, somehow.
I don't understand that.
But I wanted to make it perfectly clear. We're bald by choice, not by nature. We could grow hair if we wanted to.
That's right.
So give us some names that doesn't have bald in it. So, and I do know that bald is beautiful, which is why we're bald.
That's right.
But it's not because it's not, it's by choice. It's not by nature.
Well, it's our brains trying to push out of our scalp. Everybody can't be beautiful.
I know.
But good to see you today. We had a wonderful time of worship today, and we're so thankful you guys joined us. We had 8 baptisms this morning. It was incredible to see what the Lord did. Started early a.m., so I am tired. I am tired. So last night, Michael and I have been in a sermon series on Christian stewardship, and we had 2 weeks to go, and I messed that up. And so,
hey, you didn't mess it up. The Lord intervened.
That's right. So last night, watching the news and all things happening in Israel and Gaza, and Lord just led me to do something different this morning, and so I came in early this morning. So the sermon that I did today was put together this morning about 5 o'clock, so I'm tired. But you know what? God showed up and showed out. Amen. Man, 8 people made decisions to change their lives. Some of those are rededications, other salvations. Just amazing thing to see. All right, so today's podcast, we're gonna try to tackle 2 main things. Number one, we're going to talk about the importance of understanding the Palestinian position and the Israeli position when it comes to the war that's happening there even today. It's very important because it's easy to draw conclusions when we're sitting here in America in our nice, comfortable couches and we're not living over there the life they've been living for thousands of years. And so what little bit of knowledge that we have by visiting there and gaining friends and those type of things, we're going to share that with you. And so some of these things are detailed. I've got my iPad here. I got it elevated so I can look without looking down too much. But are very detailed. So we're going to take the time to go through these things. And then at the end of it, we're going to turn over to Michael, and he's going to answer some of your questions. And so with that being said, we want to invite you to engage here with the podcast.
Yes.
And so we want you to, if there has to be questions that you have, we've had many questions come in from different people on different circumstances. And so if you would like to present a question, you can do so on our YouTube channel at the bottom in the comments or there on Facebook. Wherever you're picking this video cast up, you can comment there. Also, we are working on the website. That's www.calvaryrcc.com. There's a link above that we started a page there for the vlog, but it's not been developed yet. So just be patient and be a week or 2 before we can get that going. So it's brand new. This is just our second time together. And we just want to say welcome and thank you, and especially thank you to Andrew Estes, Kyle Martin, who are producing this today. They're getting a lot better at what they're doing, and they're a lot smarter than we are.
Yeah, not better looking, though. That's why they're on that side of the camera and we're on this side of the camera.
They do have more hair, except Kyle. He's in denial.
Yeah, he just needs to go ahead and get rid of it.
He's got it on the sides like me. And
he's got plenty down through here, but, he needs to flip it up this way.
Flip it up that way, open up the eyeballs.
Yep. And if you do it front way, you can cover up your face. That would be even better.
That look that he's giving us is not very nice.
Yeah, he's already going to give us the end sign to go ahead and stop this, I believe.
All right, so let's talk. Okay, so we know that Israel is now, through Benjamin Netanyahu, their leader, prime minister, has now declared a statement. They're going to do all that they can to eradicate
Hamas off the face of the
planet and Hezbollah. And that's just, that's a hard thing to hear. And then in light of the news, let's talk about the news here in America. One thing that led to our sermon today was the fact that you turn on the news and across college campuses all across America, you see people in protest on both sides. But what was really highlighted this week was protest on the Palestinian side. And so you have young people in colleges that are under the assumption that there's some type of an eradication of the Palestinian people from Israel, and they're taking that side only. And what is sad about that is I'm not certain that they're using all the information that is out there is truth, and you should. So let me just share with you this. I know, Michael, this is a very sensitive topic when it comes to people. We all have people in our lives that believe in different things, but we all love each other.
Yes.
We're Christians, and we're supposed to love one another. And so it's hard for us to imagine us being in a place in the world where we can just kill someone based off of their geographical location, based off their genealogy, based off of their race or their belief system, but it happens.
It does. You know, one of the things that we always say is we're not religious. Religion kills people.
That's right,
Religion
yes.
is what is going on right now over there in the Middle East with Israel, and it's been that way from the beginning. And I want to say unequivocally that religion will send people to hell.
That's right.
And I know people, whenever I say that to someone, and I'm sure even someone watching this going, wait a minute, you're a preacher. You two are preachers, and you're saying that you're not religious? Well, let me clarify that. What we have here is not a religion. We have a relationship,
Yes.
a relationship with Jesus. So this is what we're based on. This is what we teach on. That's our foundation with everything we say and do. And unfortunately, with people having religion and listening to certain people, and that's a big problem. Another reason why I wanted to do this, we don't have people who think critically anymore.
Right.
We have people who have leaders, as you talked about this morning with idols, people that they look at, and basically whatever they say goes in their life.
I think emotionally.
And we want people to think logically for yourself by getting all the information. And one thing that we spoke on last time, and I know you're going to hit it again this time, Israel was not trying to eradicate. Israel was very, very benevolent in giving parts of the land. I mean, think about if someone came into South Carolina and we gave them Myrtle Beach, we gave them Clemson, and I say we just give somebody Clemson so we don't even have to, worry with that ever again. And not that anybody would ever want Clemson. Right? The guy stinks over there, but that's beside the point. If people were coming into our land, we would want to protect our land as well.
Sure.
We'd want to protect our people.
It would be a mistake in regarding the Palestinian and the Israeli people to blanket them under the blanket of Hezbollah, Hamas, radicalization, those type of things, because they're all just simply not that way. There are many good Palestinian people.
There are.
And I want to go ahead and just say declaratively that Hezbollah and Hamas does not represent the majority of Palestinians. We have, Kelly and I have developed friendships in Jerusalem, in the old city, with some families there that own some retail establishments, and they're Muslim.
Yeah.
And every time we go over there, they recognize us. We recognize them. We sit down, we talk. They're great, great people. Same thing with Bethlehem. We go into Bethlehem. There's some a lot of Palestinians there that we really respect and love their families, and do business with them on a regular basis. And
they have my favorite coffee chain there. Stars and Bucks.
Stars and Bucks.
Yeah.
That's right. So let's just, with that out of the way, understanding there is a radical sect of people that come under Palestinian belief, which is mostly Islam. And those people some are jihadists. And then that also happens in Hezbollah. And we're going to talk about all that. But first I want to do is I want to detail, if it's okay for you, I want to detail the Palestinian position and talk about their ideology. So here we go. The Palestinian position refers to the political, social, and territorial stance of the Palestinian people and their leadership in relation to the Israeli-Palestinian
them too.
That's a new word. Palestinian conflict. It encompasses a range of perspectives, but some key points are commonly emphasized, and I want to go through those. Number one is statehood and sovereignty. The fundamental aspiration of the Palestinians is the establishment of an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, based on, here's the key, pre-1967 borders. This state is often referred to as the State of Palestine. The next thing that the Palestinians desire is the end of occupation. Palestinians demand an end to Israeli military occupation of the West. That would be the Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem, which began after the 1967 Six-Day War. They seek the removal of Israeli settlements from these territories, which they view as illegal under international law. They also believe in and are desiring the right to return. Now, many Palestinians hold the right of return for refugees and their descendants who were displaced during the 1948 Arab Israeli War. This is a highly contentious issue, and it conflicts with Israel's position regarding the return of the Palestinian refugees, which is now in Israel. In Jerusalem, the Palestinians consider East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. They reject Israeli control over the entire city and seek international recognition of their claim of East Jerusalem. They also desire security and recognition. The Palestinians demand that Israel recognizes their right to live in peace and security along an independent Israeli state. And this is often referred to as the principle of a two-state people. The international law and resolutions. The Palestinian leadership and many supporters argue that their rights and claims are supported by numerous United States resolutions and international legal instruments, including UN General Assembly Resolution 194, which address the right of return. And then they want to be involved in negotiations and diplomacy. And while some fractions within the Palestinian political spectrum advocate for a more confrontational approach towards Israel, the official position of the Palestinian Authority based in the West Bank has generally been to pursue a negotiated settlement leading to a two-state solution. They also, as Palestinians, these are not radical, these Palestinians are looking for reconciliation and unity. The international Palestinian political landscape is divided between the Palestinian Authority, which governs parts of the West Bank, and Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip. There have been ongoing efforts to reconcile these fractions in order to present a unified front in negotiations with Israel. It is important to note that within the Palestinian population, there are diverse opinions and perspectives on these issues, and some fractions like Hamas adopt a more confrontational stance, while others like Fatah, the dominant party of the Palestinian Authority, have historically favored negotiations. Additionally, the Palestinian position has evolved over time in response to changing political, social, and economical circumstance. Therefore, the points outlined here represent general overflow and may not capture all nuances or shifts that's occurred until my last knowledge updated in 21. I wanted to write all that down so we didn't miss any of that. Now what I want to do is change from that to, which is the Palestinian position, to the ideology of Hamas.
And I want to say one thing. I know we're about to get into Hamas and how they want to basically just eradicate the Jewish people. I think it's important whenever people are talking about how Israel is trying to overthrow and Israel is trying to kill all these people. Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government has actually sent out a warning in West Bank and Gaza telling people to evacuate because they know what they're about to do. They are about to go in and try to clean house with Hamas. So they've done everything that they can to warn the good people to get out, and they're allowing them to evacuate. So let's keep that in mind as we begin to look at the ideology of Hamas and what they're wanting to do.
And you'll see a big difference between the Palestinian ideology and the Hamas ideology. And that is a lot of what's happening today. As you see the Hamas organization basically holding the Palestinians hostage in their own homes and using them as protection against Israeli troops.
Cowards.
And so I want to talk a minute the differences, because I don't want you to label all Palestinians as bad. We just read their ideology. Basically, they want to be heard. They definitely want some land in Israel. They want their own state, just like Israel is its own state. They want to have their own state. And so that's the two-state solution that President Barack Obama tried to push through. And many presidents throughout our history have believed in the two-state solution. So Hamas is just the opposite. They are very radical. They want to do all that they can to enforce the ideology and the philosophy of the Palestinians. And so, number one, when it comes to Hamas, is they're resistant in liberation. And Hamas sees itself as a resistance movement. It's dictated to the liberation of Palestine from Israeli occupation. It rejects the legitimacy of the state of Israel and advocates for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state on all territories that Israel occupied in 1967, including the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. And so they're going to do all they can to take that by force. Okay, so moving forward, I'm going to slow down just a little bit because we need to take our time through it because it's a lot of information, just like you just said. And so I want to talk about Islamism. Hamas is an Islamist organization, which means that it views Islam not only as a religion, but also as a comprehensive way of life that should inform all aspects of governments and society. It seeks to establish an Islamic state in the Palestinian territory. Now, here we go. It's important to see their tactics and how they suggest that this be done. Number one is the armed struggle. While Hamas participates in political processes, it also maintains an armed wing known as the Izzad din Qassam brigades. Hamas believes in the use of armed resistance, including the guerrilla warfare and rocket attacks against Israel military and civilian targets. Social services and charitable work. Hamas provides a wide range of social services and operates charitable organizations that has contributed to its popularity, especially in areas where the Palestinian Authority may have limited presence of resources. Let me stop right there because this can be misleading. Just because you do good does not mean there's not evil.
Right.
And so Hamas ideology and philosophy is violence, and it's absolutely evident by everything that they're doing. These people, this particular people that practice jihad at this level, at the most extreme levels of the Quran as it's taught, are absolutely evil. I want to make that perfectly clear. You cannot behead children and kill innocent women and take people as prisoners and abuse them and decapitate them without there being an element of evilness beyond anything that I can even comprehend.
Right.
One of the reasons why they're so dogmatic about forcing their ideology is because they don't believe Israel has the right to exist. They believe that Palestinian Authority that's led by Fatah, Hamas doesn't recognize the legitimacy of the state of Israel whatsoever. It has constantly rejected negotiations based on the principle of the two-state solution, although it's indicated a willingness to accept long-term truce under specific conditions. In other words, it doesn't matter how many times that Israel comes to the table, they're never satisfied. No matter what Israel tries to present as a way of peace, it's never going to be good enough to these radicals. They're not going to stop until Israel is eradicated.
That's right. That's right. And just to kind of make a comparison, again, we want to reiterate, these extremist groups do not represent the whole of people who are Islamic. We've met them. We know there's a lot of good people. Let's put it in a perspective that maybe we would understand here. We as Christians in America understand that we have extremism too within our religion. We have an organization like the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, who claims to be Christian, and yet they hate people who aren't of the same race they are.
Right.
And it's absolutely impossible to be a Christ follower and have the word hate within your ideology. So it's just the way we as Christians need to stare them down and tell them that what they're doing is wrong. It's the same thing that is going on over there. There are good people, but unfortunately it's these ones who are very radical, and unfortunately they're radical and they have weapons and they're funded by other nations, and that makes them extremely dangerous. So it's beyond just condemning them. It's actually an armed conflict now because of their hate.
Right. And it's not that there's not been attempts to bring peace, not just on the side of Israel. There's been attempts by other countries to come in and to have peace talks, is to find some type of solution between the Palestinians and the Israelis. One of those examples would be the PLO, which would be the Palestine Liberation Organization. They came to an agreement known as the Oslo Accords in 1990, and they didn't want anything to do with it. Hamas just completely rejected it and considered the resolution just ridiculous because they want a single state that's Palestinian and not Israeli. They also want the right to return, like other Palestinian fractions. Hamas asserts the right for return of Palestinian refugees and their descendants to the homes and lands they were displaced in 1948. So what they're saying is after the borders were redrawn in 48, when Israel became a state, they lost some territory, and so they want that territory back, and they're willing to do anything it takes to make that happen. Eternal Palestinian politics is another thing. Hamas will label itself as a political organization, but they are absolutely dominant in doing it. Um, they have no sense of peace about them to come to any kind of a political peace agreement. It is their way or no way. Speaking of the radicals ideology of the people in Hamas, they have pragmatism and adaptability. Where Hamas holds steadfast to its core principles, there's been evidence of pragmatic decision making. For example, it participated in the 2006 Palestinian legislative elections and in the 2017 reconciliation talks with Fatah. But no matter what seems to take place and what the efforts are, they absolutely turn those things down. And so they want to force the hands of the Israel authorities to bow down to their needs and then to take Israel by force. And that type of ideology is where we see jihadists come in. Now, if you don't know what jihadist is, let's just look at a definition of what a jihadist is. You hear that term referred a lot on the news, but a jihadist refers to an individual or a group that advocates or engages in violent actions, and often that's in the name of Islam. And their aim is to further a specific goal of religious or an ideological agenda. The term is delivered from the Arabic word jihad, which means striving or struggling. While jihad has a broader and nuanced meaning in Islamic theology, jihadists typically interpret it more militant in a confrontational matter. Now, excuse me, the jihadists are the most radical of that sect of Hamas. So Hamas often characterizes its struggle from the form of defensive jihad. They see themselves as engaged in a legitimate struggle to defend Palestinian lands and rights, particularly in the face of what they perceive as an Israeli occupation and aggression. This implementation is aligned with the concept of jihad as a struggle or striving to uphold justice and resist oppression. And then now they have armed resistance. That's part of who they are. It's their DNA as a radical sect of people. Hamas believes in the use of armed resistance as means to achieve their political goals. This includes guerrilla warfare, rocket attacks, and other forms of military action against Israeli military and civilian targets. They consider this armed struggle as a part of the broader jihad. And their ideology is also something of importance when it comes to their actions. They deeply believe in what they're doing because they believe in the most radical teachings of the Quran. Yep. They believe that if they die in the way of battle by promoting the ideology of the Quran, that they're going to be rewarded when they get to heaven. Not only that, but their family will be honored by what they do and them dying in this war. So this is what they're passionate about doing. The political context of the people of Hamas. It's worth noting that while Hamas emphasizes the concept of jihad in its rhetoric, the group also engages in political and social activities. Hamas members serve in elected offices, and the group provides a range of social services to Palestinians in Gaza. And so they are deeply rooted in politics. Now, let's take a break from this just a minute and take it back to the United States of America. There are many jihadists. There are many people, even going back to Al Qaeda, that have made the declarative statement that they're going to do all they can to promote this ideology and this philosophy into Washington, D.C. We have that here now.
We do.
We have politicians and senators and Congress people who are of the Islam belief, and some of those, not all, but some of those they have a radical ideology, like a jihadist type of attitude, and that's very dangerous right here in our own government. And so we're going to talk about that a little later, maybe the next podcast or two, about what's happening here in terms of the ideology and philosophy of the radicalization of this belief system and how that is affected here in the United States. Now, before I go to the Israeli positions, Michael, let's just talk just a minute. Give us some input about how you see things in terms of where we are today.
Well, I'll say this. One of the things that the world is focusing on, and what we focused on as well, has been how Hamas and those who are the radicals on Islam, how they treat Israelis or basically anybody that's not like them. But let's talk for a minute, because I believe if you were to go to the colleges and all the places that we've seen so many young people marching in protest against Israel and taking a pro-Palestinian stance. And again, let's separate Palestine from Hamas, because they're two totally different things. If they understood what Hamas does to their own people, I don't think that they would be standing up for this. I mean, we have progressivism here in the United States, and some of that is good, some of it is bad. Obviously, we see in recent times women are accelerating. Even Nikki Haley, last I read, she's surging in the polls and she's holding a 4-point lead over Joe Biden. So, I mean, she could very well be the next president, which is awesome. That will never happen in a radical jihad Islamic state. Let's just talk a minute about how they treat their women. There is no progressivism there.
No.
I saw one thing that absolutely made me sick, because let's be bold and honest. Iran is the one who is behind this. They're the one that's funding. And of course, on a broader scope, they're being funded by Russia, China, and all that. But Iran is really the one who is actually making the strides and pushing this along. I saw a video from Iran that absolutely broke my heart, made me sick, made me mad all at the same time. There was a child who was hungry, and he stole a piece of bread. And what they did to this child was they laid him down in the streets under a car, and the car ran over his arm so that he'll never be able to use that arm again. They would not give him any kind of medical care. And basically, I don't know what happened to him. I didn't see the rest of the story, but this is how they treat their people. So are these the ones that we won't run in the world? If you don't agree with them, you'll die. And it's not just us. If you're in their family and you try to leave this radicalism, it's almost like the cults that we see here. You won't just be exiled from them. You'll be killed.
How sad. How sad. Now, we talked about the position of the Palestinians. We talked about the position of the extremists with Hamas and Hezbollah. When you hear the term Hezbollah, that is a radical sect of people that comes out of Lebanon and in that territory. Also, there's some in the Syrian region, etc. But I want to talk about the Israeli position. This is the most important thing that I want to talk about, because I'm a Christian. Specifically, we're Christian pastors, and so we stand on the side of Israel, period.
Absolutely.
So let's just talk about the Israeli position, because I heard this week, watching the news, you hear these people that's protesting against Israel making some outlandish, ridiculous statement that Israel is trying to eradicate Palestinians. That is not true. Israel has no desire to eradicate Palestinians. That's just not true. What they need and have to do is to eradicate terrorist behavior. And there's no way of getting around it. The behavior that we've seen since last Saturday is terroristic. It is absolutely meant to destroy and to kill and to terrify.
This was Israel's 9/11.
It is. It is. And so I wanted to share with you the Israeli position. And so you understand why this war is happening. Why are these people at war? Here's why. Number one is Israel's existence and security. Israel asserts its right to exist as a Jewish state and emphasizes the importance of ensuring the security of its citizens. This is a core principle of Israel, given its historical and contemporary experience with the conflict and security threats. Their territorial integrity. Israel maintains that its borders should be secure and recognized by the international community. This includes areas captured during the 1967 Six-Day War, such as the West Bank and East Jerusalem, which Israel regards as disputed territories rather than occupied. Jerusalem, this is huge. Israel claims the entirety of Jerusalem, not parts of it, but the entirety of Jerusalem and its undivided capital, including both West Jerusalem, which is Israeli territory since 1948, and East Jerusalem, captured in 1967. This position has been a major point of contention in negotiations with the Palestinians. They do not want Israel to have complete control of Jerusalem.
It's amazing how this piece of land has just been so disputed, and it will be until the very end. I mean, when we look in a broader scope to the future, the Antichrist is going to be the one who comes in and brokers a deal between the radicals and Israel and actually gives them back all of Jerusalem, including the Temple Mount. So it will always be in dispute.
Right. Israel not just has to have Jerusalem because it's what God has given them, but also the settlements around Jerusalem. While there are differing positions with Israel, the government has supported the establishment and the expansion of the Jewish settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Many in the international community consider these settlements as illegal or under international law. Security measures. Israeli contends that it must take security measures, including checkpoints, the security barrier, and military presence in certain areas to protect the citizens from potential threats, including terrorism.
Amen.
They are wanting to protect their people. What is wrong with that?
So you're saying borders is a good thing. Secure borders is a good thing.
Yeah, they also want
Novel
recognition
idea.
and peace. Israel seeks recognition from its neighbors and the wider Arab world. It has historically pursued normalization agreements and peace treaties with neighboring countries, like the peace treaties with Egypt in 1979 and Jordan in 1994, as well as the Abraham Accords with several Arab states in 2020, which is brokered by who? By President Donald Trump. They also want refugees and the right to return. You remember, we talked about this with the Palestinians and Hamas. Israel maintains that any resolution to the refugee issue should be handled within the context of comprehensive peace agreement, and that solution must be found for Jewish refugees who are displaced from Arab countries. Now, I want to make this perfectly clear. Israel, at some point, has been faced almost daily with the idea of a two-state solution. Some people in the Israeli government has even suggested a two-state solution. But I'm going to tell you, two-state solution is not on the table.
Nope.
And it never will be. They're not being dogmatic. They're telling you that this land belongs to them and there is no room for a two-state solution. So I know that's going to ruffle some feathers. I know there's going to be many people out there that want a two-state solution, that say that's the most that's the easiest way to peace. It's the easiest way. Give them their territory. Let them alone. Let them be peaceful people. But the problem is they're never going to be peaceful. It's like what Michael said in our first podcast is you can't give them enough. It's the elephant encroaching on the tent. And so whatever you give the radical Palestinians, the more they're going to want. Now, I'm almost done here, and I'm going to turn it over to Michael, but I want to talk about the biblical foundation for Israel. Now, you didn't hear that with the Palestinians. You didn't hear that. I didn't give you a biblical foundation for guaranteed ownership with Christians or me and Michael, but I want to talk about the biblical foundation for the nation of Israel. Israel's understanding of Scripture has always been the same regarding the land of Israel, and it's deeply rooted in religious historical narratives found in the Hebrew Bible.
Yes.
Now, understand, we're talking about ancient Hebrew here. So for the first words ever written by Moses himself, which considered are sacred to the Jewish people. And so I just want to talk about a couple of those. Number one is the Abrahamic covenant. We find that in Genesis 12, 1 through 3. Listen to the scripture. Now the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. Listen closely, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. This passage is fundamental to the Jewish people all the way from the beginning to the end, because this is clearly saying that the land is given to the Israelite people from who? None other than God himself. A couple more and I'll be done. The land promised to Abraham in Genesis 13, 14 through 17. The Lord said to Abraham, after Lot separated from him, lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. Forever.
How long is that?
That's forever.
Okay.
No measurement. Next one, last one, Genesis 26, 3. The land promised to Isaac and Jacob. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your offspring I give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And to you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Just a couple of more. I'm going to keep going here. This is short, Exodus 6:8. I will bring you into the land that I swore to give Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you for a possession. I will give it to you for a possession. I am the Lord. There's nothing in there that says that's temporary. It says I'll give it to you as a possession. This verse connects the Exodus from Egypt with the fulfillment of the promise of the land. So it's clearly right there. Now, there's one that I won't get into. That's the land of Canaan and the inheritance in Numbers 34, but you should look that up at some point.
It's very important because this lays out how big of the area that God actually gave them.
Right.
If you will, and I hope, and maybe in post-editing they may be able to do this, but if you were to go on Google and look up the original biblical promised land that God had given to the Israelites, what you're going to see is it starts at the Mediterranean where they are right now, and it goes beyond the borders of Israel, which is very small, throughout Jordan, all the way to what we would call, or what they would call then Babylon, but all the way to the Euphrates River in modern day Iraq.
Right.
All that land is actually Israel's.
That's right.
Every single bit of it. But they only took a very, very small part of it.
That's right. Michael, talk to us. I'll let you do this. The prophetic scriptures for real-time events.
Okay. What we have seen is there's several prophetic passages in the Old Testament, and they're interpreted. And again, I have to have my cheat sheet here because my eyes aren't very, very good. But when they're interpreted, some do it and they predict that the nations surrounding Israel will come against her. And these passages often appear in context of apocalyptic or eschatological literature. And we just want to give a few examples. We touched on this one last time. Psalm 83, 1-8. Listen to this. O God, do not keep silence. Do not hold your peace or be still, O God. For behold, your enemies make an uproar. Those who hate you have raised their heads. They lay crafty plans against your people. They consult together against your treasured ones. They say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation. Let the name of Israel be remembered no more.
Wow.
So, I mean, you talk about modern times, real-time events. This is exactly what we see right now. And again, this is not something meant to scare us. It shouldn't bring fear to us. As we said in the first podcast, and I think we're going to continue to say, things are not falling apart. They're falling into place. Right. None of this surprises God. Not any of this is a surprise to God. As a matter of fact, this was written 1,000 years before Jesus was even
That's right.
born into this world.
3,000 years ago.
And that's been 2,000 years ago for us. So we're talking
Mhm.
3,000 years. And you can go all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, and we see that God had a plan to bring all this together from the very, very start. When God created the world, he knew that man was going to sin. That did not take him by surprise. God knew this. And that's amazing, that the love that he has for his creation, because I remember I'm not an artist and I'm not a sculptor in any way, shape, or form. And I remember in elementary school, we had to do the clay and try to make a pot out of it, or
Right.
something like that. And I bet you that I took that clay and I would start, and then I would just wad it up together in a ball and I'd start over again. I am shocked from a human standpoint that when God saw what we were going to do, because he wants us to choose him.
Mm,
We're not robots
that's
here.
right.
We have that choice. I am shocked that he just didn't wad that clay up and throw it away. I can't
Absolutely.
understand how much
Grace.
God actually loves
Grace.
us.
He loves us.
I mean, and that's the grace
He loves us.
that abounds, that is just overwhelming.
And I'm going to take just a minute to iterate what I talked about this morning in our sermon. These scriptures are nothing new. And it seems to me that Christianity in America is become apathetic. It's become complacent and even boring to some people. And what I mean by that is that these prophetic scriptures have a purpose and a plan, and that's to point people to what's coming, to give a prophetic warning to be ready, because the times are coming when all these prophecies will be fulfilled. The proof of this is that we've had so many prophecies that have come true. As a matter of fact, most prophecies Old Testament have already been realized, and some of those in New Testament have been realized. Listen to Zechariah 12:2-3. Behold, I'm about to make Jerusalem a cup of staggering to all the surrounding peoples. The siege of Jerusalem will also be against Judah. On that day, I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it up will surely hurt themselves, and all the nations of the earth will gather against it.
You spoke about Judah this morning. We think of Judah in the Old Testament, that's the place where Jerusalem was, and they were the only ones that had the good kings. I mean, the northern, when there was the split, the 10 northern nations of Israel never had a good king. The southern ones were the ones that would have a good king every once in a while, but we can see that's kind of flipped here. So talk a little bit about Judah like you did this morning in the sermon.
Yes, so Judah is hostile against Jerusalem for territorial reasons. Obviously, there's a lot of radicalized people that live in the area of Jordan. And so all this is also prophetic, that Jordan will be used, the people there used to, because it's a surrounding country. We see that in Zechariah 14:2-3. Now, I want to read this and ask you a question.
Okay.
So, for I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women raped. Half of the city shall go out into exile, but the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. For it says in the beginning, for I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle.
Yes.
Speak about that. I know what they're asking.
Yep. All right. This is a prophecy that actually will occur after the rapture. This is going to be 3.5 years into the actual tribulation period. The first 3.5 years is going to be a time of peace. That's when the Antichrist is going to make a false peace treaty with Israel and actually give them the land that we're talking about here that everybody's fighting for in Jerusalem. He is going to allow them at that point in time to create their own temple. The temple will be rebuilt. And you know better than me because you've been to Israel more than I have. But Israel already has things in place for the new temple. They have things in storage, and it can actually be a very, very quick process.
Yeah.
My prediction is it will take 3.5 years for them to actually build it and get it the way they want it. And 3.5 years in is when the Antichrist, and we see this in Daniel, and it's seen in other places as well, but Daniel is the main one. And Jesus speaks of this as well in Matthew 24. At some point in time, 3.5 years in, the way that we know the world and recognize it is probably going to be a big ceremony, and the world will be watching. You can imagine CNN, Fox News, and not just them, but all the news agencies of the world that are going to be controlled by the Antichrist at this point are going to be there, because this is going to be the time when we see something great. At least that's what's going to be promised.
And be looking for that, because we're a lot closer to that than you may think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the world is going to love the Antichrist. He's going to be this world leader, and he is going to be like a guest speaker in the temple. They're going to invite him in because he's the one that brokered this peace deal, right? So he's going to come in, and he's going to do exactly the opposite of what the Jewish people expect. He's going to stand up, as Daniel describes to us, and he is going to declare himself to be God.
Mm.
And as he declares himself to be God, anyone who does not follow him, anyone who does not worship him, anyone who does not accept the mark of the beast, and I know we're going to get there, I don't want to get too far ahead, but just to kind of give people an idea of what we're looking at here in the future. At that point in time, the Jewish people are going to recognize that's not the Messiah.
Right.
And between the angels that are flying overhead, and this is amazing, the world will know, because there will be angels flying overhead that are declaring the gospel. The two witnesses, which I believe are going to be Enoch and Elijah, but we can debate that at another time. They're going to be for 3.5 years preaching the gospel. People are going to try to kill them, and they're going to be able to shoot fire out of their mouth and kill people. But they're going to be proclaiming the gospel. It's going to be at this time, when the Antichrist stands up to declare himself as God, that the Jewish people are going to recognize that Jesus is the Messiah. And they, as a nation and as a religion, are going to begin to turn to Jesus and accept him. And this is what Jesus talks about in Matthew 24, which actually echoes what it says here in Zechariah. And it says again, I'll reread it. I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women raped. Half of the city shall go out into exile. And we see that in Revelation. We see Jesus talking about that in Matthew 24, where they actually go out and they are protected in the wilderness. Right. Just absolutely protected. But the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. So this is going to be the point in time where Jesus says that when he does this, when he just goes into the temple and he degrades it, he said at that time, when you see this, that is the time for you to run to the mountains, for you to flee. He said, don't go back to get your stuff from your home. Don't do anything. You just go and you run and you flee. And again, we see that Jesus is not only just saying this for no reason in Matthew 24, it was predicted in the Old Testament before he was actually born into this world.
Yeah, I want to highlight what you're talking about, the third temple. So if you go to Israel, to the Temple Mount, and your typical tour guide is going to bring you on the back side of the Temple Mount. You're going to enter through the Dung Gate, or maybe there's another gate right there. Forgive me, don't remember the name. Gate Beautiful. And once you go through, you're going to walk up a set of steps, and it seems like forever. And you're going to be up top of these steps. And before you go down to the left, there's an office. And that office belongs to the Temple Institute. Now, the Temple Institute is an organization that was founded many, many, many years ago by the Jewish leaders to usher in, build, and complete the third temple. And you may be saying, well, why is this important? It's incredibly important because this is one of the signs that the Lord is about to return. And so there is some question as to where that third temple will be built. The Jews believe that it should be built where the Dome of the Rock is, where the second temple was destroyed. Others now are thinking that it could be in the city of David. Now, I don't know which one it's going to be.
Speak of that, because people who've never been there don't understand the city of David and that.
Yeah, so the city of David is a small piece of territory that's on the outside of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And that is an ancient city of David. That's where David's temple was. And even today, they're discovering new parts of David's temple and whatnot. This is where King Herod has a lot of construction through the area. And so there's some question whether the Temple Mount is actually in the city of David. Now, that's still up for debate. And so, but that's not the point. The point is that the Jews are ready. They're on go. And let me tell you how critical it is for you to know this. How close are they? So all they have to do is to declare, well, they're going to build it. Everything else is ready.
Yep.
And so the high priest has to be from the tribe of Levi. And so they already have the high priest. He's ready to go, and many others as well from the tribe of Levi, as described in the Old Testament, but also the red heifer. And so the red heifer has to be the most perfect of the lineage possible from this group of cattle. And it's very specific in the scriptures of this cattle and how pure it should be. They've already got a farm with many of these cattle ready to be slaughtered on the brazen altar. They have all the furniture that's been built and prepared. They have all the utensils. They have the brazen altar. They have the candle of incense. They have all these things ready to go. So the only thing they're waiting on is, hey, where exactly are we going to build this? And so if you want to know more about this, go to templeinstitute.org. I've got it pulled up right here, and you can read all about what I'm talking about. There's several videos that you can watch. And the reason why, and this is different in Christianity, because as Christians, we worship Jesus Christ. He has returned on earth. He's already came, and he's been present here with us physically. But the Orthodox Jews do not believe that. They believe that Jesus of Nazareth did not meet the criteria of being the Messiah. And so they are still wailing at the wall, praying for the Messiah to come. And so until the Messiah comes, in their perspective, they still have to go back to the Old Testament process of slaughter and spreading the blood for the sacrificial atonement. So that's just a little bit about that. All right, Michael. I took up a lot of time.
That's okay. No, I think all this needs to be understood.
Yep.
The next ones that we talk about is Ezekiel 38 and 39. And those are two very long chapters. And you see a couple different things there. In both of them, it speaks not only of the war that we think that we're getting closer to when the Confederation of Nations led by Russia, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and those surrounding, even all the way down into northern Africa, are going to come upon Israel. It definitely speaks of that. But then as you go on in 39, it also speaks of the final war, where at the end of the 7-year tribulation, Jesus comes back on the white horse. All the nations of the world are gathered there in Megiddo, the battle of what we say the Battle of Armageddon, and he defeats all nations once and for all. But what this is talking about in these two chapters is what we're on the precipice of. And as we said last time, what we are really waiting on is what's going to happen to Damascus. And will we be here to see it, or will the rapture have already taken place?
Right.
It's hard to tell. We don't know that exactly for sure.
And you hit on that last time pretty hard. Now we know that Syria is getting involved in this conflict. And if they get involved in this conflict, Israel will have no choice but defend herself in Syria.
Yep.
And what is the capital of Syria? Somebody tell me?
Damascus.
And what's going to happen to Damascus?
It's going to be completely destroyed.
And that is a prophecy.
And we know it has not occurred because there's around 3 million people that live in just in that area, in that city. It's a major city.
I heard someone tell me last year about and I did some research on it, the airport in Damascus. So the airport in Damascus was narrow. It could handle a certain size jet. Not sure what size that jet was, but it could not handle the largest military cargo jets that's out there. And so it widened its runways and lengthened its runways to handle those jets the cargo jets that could bring in military supplies. And so they are ready. They have been ready. And now you take this debacle, this absolute stupid mistake that President Biden made by withdrawing from Afghanistan, leaving behind all of these billions of dollars of the greatest technology the United States have ever had, including the F-22 Raptor jet and our greatest advances on helicopter technology that we have and missile technology that has been in the hands of the Afghans, left behind a terrorist organization. And then now China has got their hands on that. The Russians have got their hands on that. And those military surpluses have been distributed to what? To the radical nations that involve Hamas and Hezbollah and more. And so they are taking our technology, using it against us. It's an absolute mess. And so here's what I want to say is that, as I said this morning, you almost have to make a defense, or it's up to you for the proof that none of this is true. The burden of proof is on you, because we have so much evidence to prove that the prophecies are true and what's happening right now in the nation of Israel and the surrounding of the hostile nations to the nation of Israel. God is up to something. God is up to something. And before I close, and we pray, talk to us, Michael, about what to expect from what's coming.
Okay. And you used the word debacle, and it was leaving stuff behind. But again, we want to make perfectly clear, this is not political. When you hear us speak of any president, whether it be of the United States or a king or anything else, as we said before, these aren't mistakes. This is not something that was overlooked. Things are not falling apart; they're falling into place. So we have an election coming up in a little over a year, and whoever wins that election will be the one that God wants in there, regardless. So that could be a blessing or it could be a curse. But either way, it's going to be someone, whether it be in this nation or any nation in the world, that needs to be in the place at that particular point in time to help carry out what God has already purposed, what is really already unfolded, because God lives outside of the time-space continuum. We're bound by time. We're bound by, it's 4:00 right now. He's not bound by that. He's in the past, he's in the present, he's in the future. We've just got to catch up with
That's
it.
right.
We haven't got there yet. And our life is just a vapor. Even if you live 100 years, what's 100 years next to eternity? So the right people will be in the right place to make sure that what God has already prophesied will come into place. And so the next things that we're going to see, and again, as we said in the first one, we're not prophets. We're not sons of prophets. That's not who we are. But Jesus did give us his word. And in his word, he did tell us to recognize the signs. And we do know that we're in the day of falling away. We're in the day of apostasy. We're in the day of so many churches telling people what they want to hear.
Right.
And it's opposite of what God told us that we need to hear and we need to, bank our lives on. So the next things that we can look for, if this is actually the war that's going to bring in the end times, the next thing that we need to look for is Hezbollah coming down. And as they come down, Israel will beat them. It's in the prophecy. It's going to happen. Yeah. They will be destroyed. And then you're going to see the Iranians, the Syrians, they will begin to come in. And just like I read earlier in Psalm 83, you can go to Isaiah 17. They're both talking of the same thing, the same prophecy of these nations that surround Israel doing it. We've already seen Turkey and some of the other nations saying that Israel has gone too far. I don't think they would say that if someone encroached upon their land and their territory and they responded. But since it's Israel and it's the Jewish people, we're not surprised by that. Right. So we can see as probably Hezbollah comes down, Israel's going to meet them with more force than what they come in with. And eventually, what we're probably going to see is Syria get into it. We already know that, as you said, with the larger airport there in Damascus, it was made so that things could be flown in from Iran and different places.
To
We
attack
know
Israel.
that this is going to be where they're stockpiling weapons. What's good war? What's good strategy?
Right.
You hit the weapons, you hit the munitions
Right.
before they have the opportunity to use them against you. And that's in Damascus, Syria. So at that point in time, will Syria and Damascus be completely destroyed? Because
Right,
the Bible
right.
says that it's going to happen. Will it be this war, or is this just the beginning of many wars before it leads up to that? It's a question that we can't answer.
Right. One thing that I want to do is because we need to close this out. We've been here an hour now. We've gone over time, but we need to close this out. So we'll pick up next week, and I want to talk, Michael, next time we are together, about how the United States should respond. There's no doubt that the United States has an obligation as partners with Israel to send them the weapons necessary for them to protect themselves. But there's going to come a time when there may need to be more than that. Troops on the ground. We already have strategic ships, battleships, and aircraft carriers off the Mediterranean Sea. We're already sending surplus into Israel. And then because we don't have a Speaker of the House seated, we can't do anything more than already is done. But we're thankful for Senator Ted Cruz, who signed a 10-year agreement. And so they're currently covered under the 10-year agreement for weapons to continue to move into Israel to help themselves in this war. But once a Speaker of the House is seated, then we can do a lot more. But this is going to affect the United States of America,
The world.
in many, the world in many ways. But we want to next week talk about the United States specifically and how we need to respond to this as Christians. With that being said, I'm Scott Davis, Michael Stubblefield, along with our brother Andrew Estes and Kyle Martin. These guys are doing a great job for us. We're thankful. Again, we've not named the podcast. We're waiting on you to help us do that.
No more bald. Come on.
Yeah, come on. We might be ugly and fat and bald, but we can't call it that. It's got to be
He
something
is,
cool.
not
So,
me.
yeah, so think of something cool.
Yep.
Put that in the comments down below. But hey, put your questions there too. We know you got questions, and we'll do our best to answer that. Be looking for our website to be launched for this thing pretty soon. It's great seeing you guys today. Thank you for taking the time to spend an hour with us talking. And next week, we're looking forward to seeing you again. God bless. Take care.
Amen.